Hello everyone, welcome back. Just now we had a really great discussion on our first session where we talk about graduate employability. Thank you to both panelists for sharing their experiences and knowledge, and hopefully everyone who watched the first session was able to gain a little bit of knowledge and infos. Now, without wasting any time, let us begin our next session where we will be talking on quality education. I begin this session by inviting both panelists to the platform. Miss Amira, I hand this over to you.
Thank you, Aurora. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hello everyone. I hope all of you are in great health. Thank you for staying with us till the second slot. My name is Amira Afifa Batisha, and I will be moderating the second slot for today. The second slot is titled Quality Education. Why is education important? Education can help people become better citizens, get better paid job, shows the difference between good and bad. Education also shows us the importance of hard work and at the same time helps us grow and develop. Thus, we are able to shape a better society to live in by knowing and respecting rights, laws, and regulations. Alright, let's meet our first panelist, Dr. Sahir Abdul Aziz from Johor.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to all the audience, especially the moderator and our panel, Professor Madya, Dr. Tazli. My name is Dr. Shahril Abdul Aziz. I'm from UTHM Johor, and a little bit about my background. I'm a family man, and I was a banker before for about 29 years, and maybe related to this topic that I further studies when I still in bank. I doing my master, I'm doing my PhD when I'm still working in the bank. So learning for me is the whole life process. Okay, today we are talking about, before that, I'm also teaching in the technology management and business in UTHM for the courses related to MBA. And beside that, I am teaching also marketing in the other faculty. And also in the UTM space, I'm teaching railway management because my thesis is related to railway. Okay, today we are talking about the quality education. Can I start it now?
I'm going to present Prof. Muhammad Tazli first.
Oh, okay.
Alright. Alright. For the second panelist, we have Prof. Madya Dr. Muhammad Tazli bin Azizan. I hope you are in great health. How are you, Doctor?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for Youth Virtual Intellectual Conference 2021 organizer for inviting me to this session. I'm very glad to be invited, and hopefully that I could actually share some of the points so that perhaps it's relevant with the current context that we want to discuss today lah, especially on the topic of quality education.
All right. All of us are very honored to have both panelists in the second slot of our program to give us knowledge and for us to gain awareness to become an open-minded person. Without wasting time, I would like to ask the first question to Dr. Sahir. Dr. Sahir, since we are discussing about quality education, could you give us a brief explanation about what is quality education and why is education important?
Okay, maybe I can very schema my presentation. Quality education. First of all, we have to define what is a quality education. Okay, quality means value. Therefore, quality is definitely of a good value. Quality also bring high value connotation. When it says something of good quality, it is definitely something of high value. On that basis, it will bring three senses of quality that can be thrown up for discussion. First, quality can be considered as superiority or excellence, although it is difficult to determine because superiority or excellence is a relative value. Number two, quality can be considered as achievement level, and number three, quality can be considered as a value corresponding to cost. Okay. Can I continue?
Yes, yes, you can
Okay.
continue.
Since quality is a value, that's why it is not static or fixed at some stage. This means that once we get to the level we want, we find that there is another higher level that we want to achieve next. Okay, the field of technology clearly shows this. Okay, for example, a plane, once upon a time, whose speed could reach 200 miles per hour, was considered as the most important. But from time to time, the speed of the plane can now reach more than 2,000 miles per hour. That is how quality is in all aspects that need to be evaluated. As for the meaning of education and quality, there should be an adjustment between the two to give clearer picture of quality education. Through all three meanings of quality given, the most accurate to be applied with education is the quality that means excellent. So the conclusion is quality is the excellent. This means that quality education is an excellent or high quality education. The effort to provide knowledge to mankind is to be practiced in order to make this life harmonious. This clearly shows that the quality to be produced is not to the quality of the process, but the focus is on the quality of the output. We have input, process, and output. What we consider here is the output of education, a quality that will lead man to change himself. That means the output can change the man himself. Education is a service and not a visible item of appearance, shape, and so on. Therefore, its quality is very difficult to measure because it differs from the factory products that can be seen, can be held, can be tested, and can be tested durability. The quality that has been stated in is limitless. Quality education has no ceiling or walls. Appropriate education continues to move to pursue excellence from time to time. Now we go in the perspective of Islam about the quality education. While in Islam, there are various definitions presented by educators, scholars on Islamic education. However, generally, Islam education is a process of educating, developing, and training individuals in various aspects of physical, spiritual, intellects, morals, and social awareness in order to produce perfect human beings. Believe, noble, healthy, knowledgeable, and skilled in career. In the concept of Islamic education is the concept of Rabbani, education based on guidance from the Rabb, from Allah. Islamic education can produce good human beings who are responsible for themselves, their families, the society, in order to achieve the happiness, kebahagiaan, based on the revelation from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. In fact, the Prophet Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has introduced the concept of lifelong education, the whole life learning, and seeking knowledge throughout life without distinguishing men from women. In conclusion, the education required in Islam is the process of training of intellect, physical, spiritual, ijtimaiyah, or the community, jamak, and akhlaqiyah, the moral of people. This is based on Islamic values derived from the Quran and As-Sunnah to produce a perfect human being. That's from me. Thank you.
Amira, no voice.
Sorry for the difficulty. Now, I will thank you, Prof. And Dr. Sawyer for that interesting and clear question. I hope that audience are taking notes about how important it is to have education in our life. Now, I will shift the spotlight to Dr. Tazli to answer the burning question. Dr. Tazli, do we have quality in education right now? If yes, why do we still have so many bribery cases? Corruption in primary and secondary education affects policy making and planning, school management and procurement, and teacher conduct. What is your opinion on this, Lotte?
Okay. Thank you, Amira. First of all, I must say that actually when you want to have a quality education, whenever that education take place in our society, it must fulfill three main domains. Okay, the first one is what we call as cognitive domain, all right, which is actually to test our ability to think, the ability to process in using our brain. Okay, that is number one. The second one is what we call as affective domain. Affective domain is our ability to about our feelings and our emotions and how we and in terms of values, for example. Okay, the values that we practice every day, our characters, for example, that is part of affective domain. The third one is what we call as the skill. Okay, psychomotor. Psychomotor is related to our skills, how actually we, for example, like if let's say we able to to cycle, to you know to do the cycling, for example, that is one of the skill that we should have among the children, for example. Okay, so these are the three important domains that we should cover in an education. So perhaps I do not want to answer whether that do we have the right quality of education right now. But as far as I'm concerned, what we are actually having for the past, I think, let's say, I think is since when I was a primary school children, like 30, 40 years ago. I don't know whether 50 years ago, for example, the emphasis is always about academic excellence. If you can notice that in our schools and at the universities, most of the time is about emphasizing academic excellence. The students are being processed to actually become somebody who are good at answering examination, who are good at answering examination, and we are so used to that particular system. And then when the ministry, for example, the government wanted to make that change, the parents, for example, feel a bit agitated because they feel that if let's say they're gonna make that change, will our children be learning, for example? But that those are the things that we need to somehow make aware to the society and the community, that the way how that actually we were taught in the past, for example, is not that perfect yet. Okay, um, but the most important thing that we have is actually our falsafah pendidikan negara, national
Correct.
education policy, philosophy. That is actually still intact. Okay, that is still relevant even until now. If you look at it, it is still intact and it's still relevant. Except that the way what happened right now, I would say that many of the things that were planned is very nice on the paper. In terms of the planning, everything is very beautiful. It looks very nice and so on. But the implementation, the devil is in its implementation, right? Sometimes when it is being passed down, when it is being cascade down, when, for example, the teachers or the lecturers, a lack of training, for example, the way that how we train our students in our class perhaps will be different than what is being aspired. For example, I'm taking one example of one of the national agenda is actually for the students to have what we call as KEBAT, kemahiran berfikir aras tinggi, or we call it as high order thinking skills. It is very important. It is very important because the future, even right now, many of us as the adults are lack of the ability of doing critical thinking, having lack of ability of making decision and problem solving. So those are the things that need to be emphasized to the students. But the issue is, okay, then again, we go back to the implementation. Implementation in such a way that when for example, like the student need to be trained for KBAT, HOTS, for example, what happened inside the class is still there is a lot rote learning happen. When the question goes to a up higher level, there is still a rote learning to make sure that the student can answer this higher level question, which means that the practice is not as what being desired. Okay, so that is the reason why, if you ask me, if let's say there is a certain issues with regards to values, with regards to, for example, bribery case or disciplinary issue whatsoever, is because that we do not focus that much at school. I think we as equivalent as academic excellence that we want to target. Whereas actually in education, as I mentioned earlier, there should be a balance between a cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain. All of these need to be balanced so that we grow up having all those kind of skills, having those kind of values and characters that we want for our nation, for example. And having, if you if you really think that, if we think that at the moment we have a quality education, um, this is something that I wouldn't much to say, but actually we can have a look at how our netizens behaving, right? Netizens in the social media and so on. If we feel that if we are lacking in something, perhaps those are the areas that we may want to improve. It's not simply just by introducing subjects. I think that is actually one of the um, mistakes that we keep been doing in the past. Everything something goes wrong, introduce new subject, and then there's a lots of subjects, and everything is again going for exams. Because um, having good grades doesn't mean that you have a good value or good characters. So that those are the things that we need to be very clear. And therefore that's why if you keep asking me, for example, like why those, for example, who have actually scored first class in the university yet still taking bribes, for example, it is because that there are certain element or certain aspects in themselves which is which need to be fixed, okay, which is not there yet, and therefore our education should have a look at it and try to improve it, and not only by introducing subject, but try to look as a whole. And inshallah, if let's say we try to fix those kind of things, then perhaps we can get a better quality education in our country. Thank you, Amira.
All right, thank you, Dr. Tazli. That was a very informative answer. Like Dr. Tazli has said, having a good grade doesn't mean you are a great person, and doesn't mean that you have a brighter future if you succeed in this in school, in high school. Okay. Now, before we move to another question, thank you to our loyal watchers and listeners. Please press the subscribe button and give a like to this YouTube live. And if you have any burning question to ask both of our panelists, drop it in the comment section below. Okay. All right. With that out of the way, let's move on to our next question. Tuan Dr. Mahathir, our former Prime Minister, have said that continuous learning culture key to Japan staying relevant in the current times. His desire to apply the technology used by Retsumekan in Malaysian school in line with the government's plan to introduce new learning methods and using recorded lessons to facilitate and improve the quality education. So, this question is for Dr. Sahri. What do you think about this statement? Should we follow others' country learning style?
Okay, thank you, Amira.
Okay.
What is in our education system today? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear
Yeah,
you.
sorry. What is in our education system today? Mostly is the same thing as the education system in other countries, whether Finland, Japan, Singapore, US, mostly the same, or any other country. What may be different is the way the approach is made to achieve the objective. Okay, this must be different because it depends on the culture and the demography. Okay, we need to be or added. It is what we need to add in this system is only the spiritual value. Okay, okay. For other country, they don't have to put that because they with their belief, but we with our belief. But our culture and them is different. For example, in Japan, we are. What is their belief? Okay, what is their culture? How do they work? They work uh, from morning to night, and their culture, the wife not allowed the husband to come back early. They will be scolded by the wife if the husband come back early from work. That means the husband is not working hard. This is their culture, but this is not our culture. In US, they work differently with the Japan people. They work as less hour as they can. For example, in Australia, a doctor, okay, a doctor only is allowed to work only 38 hours per week. Okay, but doctor in Malaysia working 48 hours per day. This is a different thing. Okay, this is a culture. But what we need to add in this system is only the spiritual value. There are things that we can be replicated from other country, but not all, because the education system in other country is meant in according to their belief and their culture. If they are they are good element for us to take on, such as how education produces dedicated, honest, trustworthy employees, then we should take it. If in Japan, the way they work hard, that we should take as input in our education process. How Australia can work 38 hours per week, how they manage their work, and then that system that we can take into our system. We combine here. Okay, this is what I in my view now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. It was a very clear answer. I bet all of us can agree that was a fascinating facts we just learned there, including me. All right. Now I will be picking the question that our audience have filled in the Google Forms that have been given. One of the audience, Nasrin Nadira, asks, nowadays, many students choose to get married early due to a lot of reasons, such as the family that doesn't have enough money to live, the family that have a different perspective that education have taken lightly, and etc. What are your views about this, Dr. Tazli?
Okay. Right.
Syuk kahwin pula masuk dalam ni.
Syuk kahwin. Okay,
Uh,
before that, I think let me address a little bit on the question that I didn't pose to Dr. Sarin. A little, just tambah sikit lah kan, tambah
Yeah,
phrase.
all right, all
please,
right.
Uh,
please, please.
okay, kalau if let's say we go, I think how many of us do really remember about falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan? Because this falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan is not only relevant for the school, it's also relevant at the university. Okay, contohnya kalau saya baca kat sini, pendidikan di Malaysia adalah satu usaha berterusan ke arah memperkembangkan lagi potensi individu secara menyeluruh dan bersepadu. Okay, holistic and integrated untuk mewujudkan insan yang seimbang dan harmonis dari segi intelek, rohani, emosi dan jasmani berdasarkan kepercayaan dan kepatuhan kepada Tuhan. Usaha ini adalah bagi melahirkan rakyat Malaysia yang berilmu pengetahuan, berketerampilan, berakhlak mulia, bertanggungjawab dan berkeupayaan mencapai kesejahteraan diri serta memberi sumbangan terhadap keharmonian dan kemakmuran keluarga, masyarakat dan negara. So if we really look at the falsafah pendidikan negara kebangsaan ni, is very holistic. It's very holistic. For example, like in term of dia punya emphasis kepada pembentukan dari segi intelek, rohani, emosi dan jasmani and so on. So you can see that on the paper, it looks very nice. Even daripada dulu lagi, when the first time falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan ni being introduced, it is actually a very good philosophy. And on what we discover, okay, just a little bit of sharing. Masa tahun 2018 hingga 2019, I was actually appointed as masa tu I still work at University Technology Petronas, and I was the director for Center for Excellent Teaching and Learning at that university during that time. And I was appointed as well as one of the 13 members for Jawatan Kuasa Kajian Dasar Pendidikan Negara under a special task force reported directly to YB Education Minister that time, the YB Dr. Mazli Malik. What we have to do is actually we were given 6 months actually to have a look at our current national education policy, and suggest for improvement. Okay, and I think if you want to get to know about nasib apa yang berlaku kepada JKDPN ni, boleh baca buku Dr. Mazli. Dr. Mazli ada tulis certain section on this JKDPN. But what we discovered is that our national education philosophy is very good. It's already there. It accept that dia cumanya dia tak diimani, okay, dia tak dijiwai oleh, dia sepatutnya bukan dijiwai oleh Minister of Education ataupun Ministry of Higher Education semata-mata. It should be actually embraced by other ministries as well. Okay, Ministry of Human Resource, for example, Ministry of apa-apa segala ministry, Kementerian Wanita dan sebagainya pun, everything it has to take up is national education philosophy as part of the philosophy that they need to menjayakan. Because if you know about what is actually the philosophy behind knowledge, it takes a village to raise a child. Dia mengambil satu kampung tu untuk raise a child, bukan satu family atau seorang. It takes everyone to participate and support on it. And this is actually a universal punya understanding about education. And jadi tak adalah sebenarnya macam, oh, kita kena ikut, we have to follow like what Japanese did, like what Finnish did, like what the Swedish did, or even right now, I think the most what we call as tengah naik sekarang ni ialah Estonia. Okay, Estonia is one of the country yang kalau ikut kalau kita tengok guna ranking what we call as PISA and thing whatsoever, they are good. They are using a very lower cost of the cost punya ni, but at the same time they are also pushing themselves getting better. So but these are the countries that we can benchmark. The thing is I've not seen that we are yet to fulfill the whole things that we actually have put it down in our falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. Contohnya we talk about emosi, kan, dalam kataan emosi tadi. Kalau boleh ingatlah contohnya daripada kita, for example like from our primary school sampai lah university, siapa yang sebenarnya bantu kita support in term of our emotion and managing our emotion, for example if let's say a children got angry, for example, or a children be very sad, for example, who actually come and explain to them, this is actually the feeling, the emotion that you have, it is a valid feeling, you can feel like this, but how to manage this. Rasanya mungkin setengah orang mungkin jumpa, tapi most of us, saya rasa macam even me myself, I don't encounter that. I actually experience myself, I have to solve it myself. We are expected to solve ourselves. Whereas actually emosi, managing emotion is part of the education that should be inculcated in. Then that's a problem. Ramai sebenarnya what happen is whenever that we grow up, we become academic excellent, achieve very well, but we fail to manage our emotion. Kita ada adult tantrum. Betul tak? Kita dekat jalan raya, when somebody beam you light, Lepas tu you rasa nak bergaduh balik dengan orang tu. Nak lawan balik, nak racing. When somebody kecam kita dekat Twitter for example, in the first place orang yang kecam tu pun satu hal. Tapi in the first, when somebody stranger kecam kita kat Twitter for example, you tend to fight back, retaliate balik. Kenapa? You never know each other, so why bother? Macam tu lah kan. Tapi that's the problem with us, because we fail to manage our emotion, because in the first place, when we were younger, we never thought of doing so. So going back to getting married, is it okay, possible of getting married while furthering your study? It actually depends. Sebenarnya it depends. Maksudnya kita tak ada certain guideline kata, oh tak boleh kahwin lagi sebelum belajar. I mean, as long as you reach puberty, you want to get married, is up to you. But the most important part is actually you know what is your responsibility. Somebody who are educated, who got a very good, who knows that what are their responsibility when they're being educated, okay, they know if let's say they choose to get married, they know what are the responsibilities. Bukan simply kata macam sebab kahwin sekadar untuk macam tak dapat menahan perasaan contohnya kan, tapi dia nak kahwin. I think that is not a good example. Or perhaps nak kahwin tu sebab I do not know, kalau orang kata alasan untuk support family, I'm not sure pula, nanti dah ada family baru pula dia nak kahwin kan. Tapi it's actually it depends on the person or individual itself. So there is no right and wrong answer about that. There are of course, even some of my friends masa doing the degree pun ada je yang kahwin semua kan. Ada yang masa masuk degree second year dah ada anak contohnya. But they still survive because they still become successful in academically lah. Kalau academically, I'm not sure about other things, kita tak tahu lah kan what happen. Tapi academically they can still balance it. So why not? Tak ada masalah pun. Jadi it's a matter of we ask ourselves, are we adults enough for us to take up another responsibility? Kalau contohnya, kalau we feel that I mean we still want to develop ourselves to become a better person and so on, and we feel that if let's say that kind of marriage will be able to make us to become better, then go ahead. Ataupun kalau rasanya macam kita mungkin rasa tak mampu lagi sebab kita pun mungkin perangai kebudak-budakan masih lagi terbawa kepada adulthood, perhaps you have to
Postpone.
postpone lah dulu kan. Tangguhlah dulu. So these are the things yang it's not right or wrong answer, but it perhaps that's why education tu sepatutnya mematangkan kita. Education tu sepatutnya whenever that, for example like even at school kita dah dibentuk dengan character building. We already have all this mannerism and so on, all these values. Masuk sekolah menengah, then we know pula in term of financial planning, we know in term of future punya planning and so on. Tapi itulah yang berlaku sekarang, everything is about exams lah. That is also my comment on it lah. Over to you, Amira.
Alright, thank you, Doctor, for the splendid answer for about marriage and is it okay or not. I agree with you, Doctor. It's our
Agree
own
to
choice.
marry early.
No, agree to the answer. It's our choice. So depends on us. If we think that's more important, go for it. If it doesn't,
Okay, I
then
add
that's
a
it.
little bit, Amira.
Alright. Sure,
Okay.
Doctor.
Okay. This is not a problem to get married at young age or during learning in the college or university. The important things here that the couple clearly understand the meaning of the marriage. A marriage is an agreement to live together as a family with the responsibility that will be borne until the end of the life or the end of the marriage life. Okay. A family, on the other hand, needs to have an ability for different aspects of life to be continued. Living as a family that will grow, members in the family will grow. You will have a child after that from time to time. So, both spiritually, economically, fulfilling the family needs, foods, and more. All this is the necessity. If a couple wants to get married at a young age, they need to complement this method, okay? To complement the responsibility and the needs, or at least be prepared for a basic thing such as a knowledge, ability to provide basic thing to the family, acceptance and responsible to the addition of family members, educational responsibility to their parent also, their father, their mother, their family, in-law and community and so on. That's it. As a resident.
Macam tak menggalakkan lagi lah ni.
Boleh. Kita pun kahwin awal dulu.
Hmm.
Doktor,
Alright.
Prof mungkin pun kahwin awal. Belajar dekat UK kan. Saya 25 dah ada anak.
Sama.
Oh.
Amira umur berapa sekarang?
Saya muda lagi, 18.
Kalau ikut akta apa? Syariah dah boleh.
No,
Okay,
thank
tak
you.
apa.
I prefer study first.
Okay, good.
Alright. For the next question for Dr. Sahil. These days, the percentage of unemployed Malaysians have increased. Hence, students from high school tend to think that continuing their studies isn't that worthy anymore. So they took the path to work right after they graduated high school. What is your opinion on this matter, and how do we prevent high school students to, how will we prevent
They don't want
students from,
to continue study
they don't want
because
to,
they believe that
yes.
you study high, then
Still no job.
jobless.
You have no, yeah.
Okay, this I think that what our education system need to address. First, students think that education are a stepping stone to get a job. In one area, it is right because every job requires an employee who has at least an educational foundation. Tak ada tempat kerja yang akan ambil kita yang tak ada pelajaran. Betul? Tak ada certificate. Okay, this at least the basic education foundation. However, the education system need to explain deeply into the heart of the student the real goal of learning and knowledge. This is what the system should stress to the student. It is not just to get a job, but rather to educate someone how to work for their future. Okay, we teach the student how to live, how to work, not to get a job, how to work for their future. Second, for students in higher education institution, okay, in the university, these people should be encouraged to do jobs while they are learning in the university, in which it can indirectly improve the financial issues to the student, okay, by doing part-time job or whatsoever related to the job. While it will also promoting the attractiveness and interest of student to become entrepreneur. Okay, indirectly we create an entrepreneur because, for example, I have a student doing business study, but at the same time doing some kind of a part-time job, repair notebook or repair the laptop. Okay, in part year 1, SEM 2, but in final year he already drive a Highland with the income he gained from the repairing the notebook. Okay, this kind of thing is common in Western such countries such as USA, in Europe, Russia, Korea, Japan and China. Most of the university student, they work. Okay, they work. In most of this country, the education is no longer borne by the government or by parents. Okay? To get the scholarship is very selective basis. Very selective, very difficult. And education is no more sponsored by the government. No more scholarship from the government. And also parent, because they are low, uh, their daughter or their sons only under their guidance up to 20 years old, 21 years old. And after that, you
Oh,
live yourself. You have to find
own home.
your financial
Mm.
background yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
And they have to make their own effort to improve their level education. At the same time, also, they also want to improve their education level. So they work while they are learning. Indirectly, student can gain much needed work experience. By work part-time, we can get we can gain our experience. This is what the employer wants. You graduate from UITM, okay? But you have in textile, but you have experience. What the employer can say? The employer can accept you, at least. But if you come without the experience, I don't think the employer will prefer to the expert one. Okay? Okay. Indirectly, students can gain much needed work experience to get a better job. Or perhaps they are more interested in being self-employed as they are able to earn better income than their salary. Back to my student. Due to the income, now he is driving the highlight. I'm I'm asking him, what is your future plan? He said, just continue the business. No more intention to go for job. Okay, that's all. Thank you. Maybe doctor can can add.
Alright. Doctor, anything to add?
Uh, with regards to ni kan, maksudnya whether should should they should I mean like some of the high school students, they do not want to further studies because those having PhD is masters pun ada juga tak dapat kerja kan, not having a
Yes.
good. Right. The issue right now when we talk about doing masters or PhD, the purpose of all is actually you have to ask what's the purpose of continuing or furthering the study, because some people they said that I didn't get any job, that's why I further my study. That's a very very wrong sign. I think I want to
Yeah.
answer as well the question by if you, I think from Aurora here. Is it do you think it's better to continue to master after bachelor degree or go work first then after that continue the master? So it's actually related because the thing is, whenever that you want to further your masters or your PhD, for example, you have to ask yourself first why you are furthering the study. Why you want to further your study to do masters or PhD? Are you, if let's say after your degree you cannot get job, and then after that you continue your masters or PhD, and then expecting after that you'll be able to get jobs, if unless you be able to acquire certain skills that is needed for the job market, then you'll be able to get job. But
Yeah.
if let's say you just pursue your masters and then finish masters, still try to get job, still not be able to get
Doing
job,
PhD.
I can do PhD. And then they expected after that, I have done my PhD, still unable to find job. And that is already a wrong sign that there must be some kind of skills that you are lacking and you never be able have a chance to develop during your studies. Because if let's say you have a PhD, for example, it doesn't mean that you have to work with someone. You should actually maybe try to get some skills and then go for entrepreneurship, for example, become an entrepreneur, for example. You develop your own image and persona, for example, your branding, and so that people know you and get to, you become somebody who doesn't have to work with anyone. But when you start to complain that I try to get job and then I end up become grab driver, I mean, that is something I feel it is not about the wrong, nothing wrong with the masters or PhD. Is the way how we actually, the initial intention, our learning goals when we want to do that. Those are the things that we need to also highlight to the high school students. Okay, why do you in the first place you want to further your studies? Is it because you want to get job? Of course, you can get job now with your qualification and SPM holder. You can get any kind of job that you want. But when if you go to universities, for example, you may want to think about getting some kind of skills that you may need it to get a better job ataupun to do something better in the future. So that's why as for me, um, I welcome different kind of variety or routes for people to pursue their studies. If let's say right now you are high school students and you don't intend to further your study, then perhaps you can go and do some job first. Never mind, go ahead. And after that, after sometimes maybe you feel that you need some skills, you need to upskill yourself, and then you come back to university and further your studies so that you can improve yourself and become a better version of you. And then you can get, you can expand whatever that you're doing, or do something better, for example. So we shouldn't be too stigmatized with like, oh, right after high school kena masuk sekolah, kena masuk universiti, kena masuk ini, kena masuk ini. We have it's a very stereotype way of actually furthering our studies, and therefore after that kita kata dah bayar mahal-mahal masuk university, still we never got job, right? So that's how, what do you call that? That's the thing that we should actually, as an adult, okay, when we go, okay, I would say as a young adult lah. Tapi as a young adult, during at that particular age, 18, 19 years old, you should be able to make decision on your own. Okay, of course, with support from, you got advice from different people. You try to get advice from your parents, for example. You
Parents.
try to advice from teachers or counselors, or you go to make a lot of searches, for example, kan. Tapi you are the one who make decision on your own, instead of like, oh, my parents asked me to be like this. You can talk nicely to your parents, discuss, negotiate, and those are the skills that is needed yang sebenarnya diajar dekat secondary school, so that you be able to do these things when you graduate from high school, from secondary school. Kan? Tapi most of us, even actually when I was in London last time when I did my PhD, I was a bit macam appalled jugalah. For example, like I saw parents come accompanying the students, even actually when they want to write the form, the parents fill up the form instead of the student themselves. So those who actually come to UK, for those like who got scholarships and all these straight A's and something. But then parents accompanying them. I know, like because right now everyone can fly. During my time, nobody can fly. I only can fly by the scholar punya tiket kan. Tapi right now everybody can fly. Even parents pun fly together. Even when parents fly together, even the form are being filled up by parents, which I think that is not very appropriate lah. And that's that I start to question whether have we actually done it right at our school, for example. So those are the things that we have to answer, kan. So yes, again, we need to really be very clear with our goals, what actually that we want. And once we know what we want, then decide on your own whether you want to hold on first, you want to further your studies first, you want to pursue a higher degree, for example, PhD or masters. It is all depends on you. Thank you.
All right, thank you both doctors. Uh, sorry. Education is important to survive in this world, but skills to talk and speak out about the knowledge and experience that the person have is also important, like what the Sari and Dr. Tazli have said. Okay, now we'll be moving on the next question, the next session of our second slot, and that is Q&A session. All right, I'll be reading the comment section on YouTube. All right, Farah Atila said, as we know, Sir Sadiq said that TITAS should be eliminated in university. From your point of view, is TITAS have effect in our quality education? So, any
Doctor,
doctors
can you explain a little bit about what is DITAS?
ITAS ni is Tamadun Islam dan Tamadun Asia punya
Oh,
subject, which is actually is a compulsory subject for everyone, kan?
yeah,
For
right.
everyone of you. I think it's a national requirement of this subject lah. So I think let me give my point of view lah with regards to this. Actually, okay. If you notice, actually dalam in what we call as US mini curriculum. US mini curriculum, they actually introduce what we call as liberal science, science liberal. Okay, so liberal science ni is actually where the subject, for example, like for those from background like science, engineering, technology related, they actually can take some subject, social science subject, related subject, so that the idea is actually okay. When we talk about the ideas of going to universities ni, it is not only about learning the subject tau. Contohnya kalau you actually going for engineering, like myself, my background is chemical engineering. If you go for engineering, you are actually learning about the engineering thinking behind it. If let's say you are pursuing your studies in business, for example, you are learning the business thinking behind it. And then if let's say you go for social science, arts, for example, is actually some kind of art thinking as well that is actually demonstrated in those particular courses. So you when you've been actually exposed to all these kind of subjects, you actually will be able to develop yourself into that kind of thinking. But there are certain issues with regard to developing, when, for example, if let's say you are taking everything is 100% is engineering courses, what will happen is that um, the way how you think, engineers ni, they are very good at decision making. Engineers ni memang diajar untuk as a problem solving, decision making. Tapi dia tak reti nak explore the variety of options to solve it. Dia is a bit, dia kalau tak, if dia a bit binary. If it not one, then it's gonna be zero. If it's not black, then it's gonna be white. So when they are actually exposed to certain kind of subjects related to liberal science, for example, which is social science related subject, they will be able to learn the non-science thinking behind these particular subjects. Okay, and they'll be able to balance themselves, so at least to have more empathy in actually, because, for example, when they become a graduates later on, they're not going to work only with engineers. They are going to work with different kind of people surrounding them, and these people have different background. If they just use the cap of the engineers and make decision only as the engineers, they may not have enough empathy of what other people think. And if let's say if he is dominant in making the decision, he will be seen as the only one and nobody can actually understand him, for example. So that's the idea of learning other courses, so that you learn the thinking process behind it. As what I think YB said, Sadiq pointed out, he proposed titas to be eliminated. I think that is quite a bit a bit radical punya um a bit radical punya suggestion. Perhaps in between that, before you decide to eliminate anything, maybe what you have to consider is actually the way how the teaching and learning activities are being conducted inside the class. You know, I know that many students also see that TITAS as a very boring subject, very dry. Everything is being taught and then just listen to the lecturers, whatever that the lecturers are saying. Whereas actually TITAS should be a subject where there is a debate, where there is a controversial issues that come out, and should allow for students to say things out, to be very critical in it. It's not simply just follow the history behind it. It's not only about, for example, when you learn about history, it's not learning about the facts about history, but it's actually learning the lesson behind that, and try to, for example, if let's say if things become like this right now, what we're gonna do, how can we do better, for example. So these are the things that should be discussed within that subject, instead of just listening to the lecture and you doze off, for example. Kan? So I would say the most important way is actually try to change that kind of teaching and learning approaches, and make it more student centered, for example. Perhaps you will find it very useful to you. So before we decided to remove anything, that's what I feel lah. So I think um the recommendation to just totally eliminate, maybe we can put it on hold, but try to improve first the way how teaching and learning activities is being conducted on these subjects. Over to you, Amira. Dr.
Okay,
Zaya, you want anything to add?
Uh, Dr. Saya
okay,
to add anything?
little bit. Okay. The first university in the world is University Salamanca, which was established in year 1218. I think somewhere in Maghribi. Okay, this is the first university. What is the purpose of the establishing this university? Because even though that time uh, people are learning about the religion in the madrasah or whatsoever at the lower level, they went to the university because they want to get more knowledge. They want to gain more knowledge on the religion. Okay, okay. Back to this year. Okay, we learn engineering. Okay, when we go to university, that means we not only learning about the engineering. We think about the engineering as what Dr. Tajri said just now. We learn about the how we think about the engineering. And in the university also, we learn, we gain our knowledge about other matters. So the thing come together. When we, as an output of the university, we not only know one thing only. Okay? Some students are misunderstanding about this. The university is the highest learning center, and this is where students who have gained knowledge from the basic level to secondary level increase their understanding or increase their knowledge or more things and feel that they may not have known before. Because everything they earn at university will be used anyway while they are working. Do they want to be like a robot or machine that only do the work that has been programmed on them? Whereas as a human beings, instinct are curious or want to add knowledge are always there, and they need to take this opportunity at university. They can get only in university, not in the school or medium school. Many subjects that student may feel not to be included in the university teaching and learning syllabus, such as religious, tamadun, languages, moral subject, and so on. They need to understand that university are places where the subject are mentioned in study from a wider aspect to be their future guide and guideline. Okay, that is the purpose of the establishing university. Okay, if you do PhD, you have a globe. Okay, but on the globe we have ada satu what benjol. We only want to know the small part, but we have to know the whole globe to get the one part. They understand that? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saya and Dr. Tazli. For the next question from Evelyn Lim, do you feel that current way we are educating children fully prepares them for the needs of the 21st century? Dr.
If I
Saya.
may answer, kalau saya boleh jawab lah.
Alright.
Nanti, if we are looking at this, actually, as I mentioned earlier lah, what is actually on the paper is it looks nice. It looks nice, but when it comes to actually implementation, that is something that we need to improve lah. For example, like contohnya the approach of having more student-centered activities inside the class. That is one of the good approach for the students to learn about teamwork, about problem solving, team problem solving, about leadership, about having their curiosity being solved, for example. So these are the things that we may want to have our students. I mean, the skills that we want to have our students have. But the issues is, I can see that some of the teachers perhaps need a refresher for that. Instead of doing it over and over again, the same thing over and over again, like what they did the past 10 years. It need to be improved. It need to be changed. Only then things could make some changes. Okay, and it's not only about teachers. For example, like the parents. Parents also could also benefit. Could also learn one or two things that they can do at home together with the children. For example, like recently I brought my sons 8 years old and 11 years old. After about 2 years, they because of the COVID and they cannot get out and something like that kan. In Perlis here, so I brought them to market. So when I brought them to the market, I actually bring them, for example, like I show them about the different type of fish, for example, and then I show them about the price of the fish, for example, how much is it per kilo and so on. Immediately I ask them to do some mathematics. For example, if let's say I want to purchase half kilo of this, for example, what will be the cost? And then they can immediately answer that. And then I brought them and showed the different type of vegetables and so on. After that, they come out from after 20 minutes. After that 20 minutes, we got into the car and I start to ask them to reflect about things that they see today. So what do you see? What do you think about market, for example? You know, when I ask the question, what do you think about market? It's actually very open ended, right? And then one of my sons, he said that, oh, I think market is not suitable place for children to go. And my son further, another son further added, oh, I think market is only for the children to see what their parents bought. And I asked them, oh, is it a good thing or not? They said don't know. I said I further add lah, kata nanti if let's say you grow up, you know about all this kind of different type of fish. When you got married, then you know where to buy, what to buy, for example. So and after that I asked them, okay, how do you see the cleanliness of the toilet, for example, of the market, for example? Oh, it's very very dirty. That's what my sons added lah. So what do you think that you can do to solve the problem of the cleanliness? And then one of my son, he said, dia kata, oh, maybe we should employ like different many janitors around so that every time it got dirty then need to wipe up. Yang tu yang 11 years old. Yang 8 tahun tu dia kata, oh, maybe we need to use a giant mop, a giant cloth, so that we can, dia kata they analyze the problem. Dia kata, I think the dirt, what makes it dirty is because of the water, the pool of water dekat market. So if we remove this water, then it's gonna be a problem solved. So you know that that's the process of what we call as experiential learning. And does this experiential learning happen at our school or not? Because most of the time it's actually everything is like watching the blackboard, look at the whiteboard and see what the teachers did. So of course now it's because of the COVID and so on. There are certain restriction, but um, you know, I mean, we still can improve lah. We still can improve, and I don't think that we should just settle down with whatever that we are doing right now. As a parents and teachers, we should hand to ni lah, together lah. Actually, try to improve ourselves so that we can get a better education for our children. That's number one. And when it comes to university students, of course there are still many things as well need to be done. For example, like when we talk about online learning, there are still many loopholes that we could address, and in terms of the pedagogical approaches that we can use inside our class, that is something else that we also need to address. So yes, over to you back, Amira.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Razli. Dr. Sahir, do you want to add anything?
With the current system, we can only achieve the objective of the education system for the 21st century with an additional support by the parents or other parties. Not only depend on the school or the institution, because as mentioned by Prof just now, before this, in university, maybe you are just focused on the blackboard, on the examination, but you don't learn about the life outside there. If I remember, compared to my son today, I think I can do many things, but my son cannot. For example, recently, the door knob was locked from inside the room. So no, we have no key because the key inside the room. But this, my son, I just, how you want to open the door? Said, I cannot, just cannot think how to open. But for me, because we are old people, we create uh, the way how to open. Maybe we just break some hole from outside, put some wood or stick, just open from inside the room, like that. But this what I can see that sometimes they cannot think, but many things they are good in IT. They are very good in computer or game are very good. Yeah, in social media or fashion, they are very good. But kind like this, they don't know. That's why they have need a guidance from the parents, the family who know better as an additional to achieve the system, education system for the 21st century. Yes, that's back to you, Amina.
Excellent answer from Dr. Sari and Dr. Tazli. Okay, for the next question, from Shadatul Ramli, from engineering background, do you think theory exam plays important part than practical or hands-on exam? Is it preferable if we carry out practical exam only?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for the question. I think my background is engineering, so
Yeah,
I will try
helps.
to answer. Okay. Right. Actually, when you become engineer, what differentiate between engineer and technician is actually the engineers know the fundamentals behind things. Okay. For example, like engineers knew that if let's say we just look at the aircon, for example, if let's say we just do practical, for example, like looking at the aircon, there's some leaking, for example. You know, if you pass it to our, you don't need an engineer to fix it. We can just have a technician to do it, right? Because they can
Yes.
just do the hands-on and then they do the repair and so on. But if let's say if we're talking about the needs of engineer, is actually, for example, like you keep consistent even that there is a consistent leaking problem, or the consistency of electrical bills go up very high, for example, you know, and then looking at innovative way of how can actually the old aircon can be um, modified a little bit so that it can become colder at the same time is cost saving. So those are the things that needs fundamentals knowledge rather than practical. Of course, if let's say you keep giving this suggestion, you know, for those, for example, like the technician, they can just see and then they know the problem, how to fix it. But if let's say if you want to make an improvisation, if you want to make some kind of modification, for example, yet you are achieving things like cost saving and so on, the technician will be able to do that. It needs an engineer who have a very strong fundamentals. So that's why it need to be balanced in terms of like the theoretical as well as practical hands-on. Hands-on is also important, but theoretical is also equivalently important. But the way how actually the current thing also with regard to assessment, penilaian ni, dia sebenarnya what is actually going wrong is that we try to make it standardized for everyone. Standardized as if like sama ada is actually jawapan dia kalau you calculate ini je jawapan yang ada. Masuk-masuk nombor, value, put in the values, this is number that you get. And then when you would ask to actually to justify what is the number is all about, it's already you already being trained. Okay, kalau nombor ni macam ni, ini jawapan dia. Kalau nombor ni macam ni, ini jawapan dia. So you are not actually achieving the high order thinking skills that is needed. So that's why I feel blessed actually. I feel blessed when COVID comes because I've been actually all this while I've been advocating for what we call as open-ended open-ended kind of assessment. Why it is important open-ended assessment ni? I know even now right now people I mean most of the universities they are doing open-ended just for the sake of because they do not want the student to cheat because everybody is taking the online exam and so on they don't want, but the real reason why we are doing open-ended, if let's say later on, if you work as an engineer or someone who need to solve the problem, do you close the book or open the book to find the solution? And then do you only open one book or you actually you go for many resources in order for you to solve the problem? Right. Of course, you're
Exactly.
going for many resources and you're going for many books and so on. And those are the things that the student need to learn from now. Tak boleh macam sekarang ni jawab exam, try to jawab exam, everything is close-ended. Tiba-tiba you enter the real world and you are expected to solve open-ended problem. How can you solve it? Memang tak boleh lah. That's why it is very important daripada zaman student lagi, you being exposed to all this kind of open-ended. And you have to know that whenever that you come across problem, for example dekat kilang, dekat plants for example, this is always I emphasize to my engineering students lah. I always mention to them that it's supposed to be that there is no way that the problem come only for one subject. Sometimes it is integrated with different subject. Sometimes it even yet you have to work with HR in order for you to solve the problem. And it comes the social science issues that you have to know as well. So that's why assessment ni the way how we assess it depends on what really we want the students to achieve. It's not simply just macam okay lah kita buat final exam, everything close ended, hafal, jawab, hafal, luar, hafal, luar. That is a very academic achievement exam oriented lah. Yang mana kita memang kita kena try to eliminate this as much as possible. Because for me, it becomes a culprit of what makes our students are right now. That's my radical thoughts about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tazli. Do you want to add anything, Dr. Tazli?
I'm not from the
No.
engineering background. Sorry.
Oh, all right.
But what
Okay.
have been explained by Prof is good enough for me, for our knowledge. This is totally true.
Yeah, to study. Okay, next question. Syaratul Ramli. From your point of view, what do you think of our education should be for the next 30 years? Can you give suggestion on which program or course we should take notice into?
For next 30 years?
In the future, pada masa depan.
For the
Maksudnya
next
macam for lebih baik ambil subjek apa untuk kerja waktu masa depan. Contohnya IT kan banyak guna sekarang. So there's a lot of course to take. But what do doctors suggest?
I believe that the education, the development of education system is following the existent or the current situation. So it will follow, in my opinion lah. Because to plan for the next 30 years, we don't know what is the style of our life that time. Okay, we don't think about our life today because we are full of the IT information nowadays, but we don't think it about 30 years ago. This is my opinion, maybe different with the Dr. Prof, but the most important, we must know our education development for our our self-development first. Self-development. Okay? We get ready for the change. Of course, we will must have the existing system for in preparation for the next change. This is what I can answer because maybe Prof know better about this. Can explain better about this.
I agree dengan Dr. Syed. Because for example like we cannot predict the futures. I mean we can see what is the future trend. For example, like who would expect right now there is a job called social media experts. 10 years ago, nobody is actually predicting that kind of job exists and being paid some kind of salary. You know, even nobody would ever think that there is cyber troopers as well. Kan?
Yeah,
Maksudnya,
correct.
but these are the things that evolve right now and people will pay for it. Okay, and in the future, of course, we cannot expect or predict it. But what we can actually predict is actually what we know is actually what are the skills that is needed for the future. That can be predicted right now, and those are the things that we can try to shape ourselves to be. For example, like I think maybe in the future I would say, because right now Facebook pun dah tukar nama jadi Meta, dia kata Meta kan. So Meta is going to be a metaverse. Perhaps those are the area that are going to be a lot more evolved lah. Virtual reality kind of things, you know, where people live in the virtual world and try to solve, even I do not know. Perhaps later, uh, maybe we have virtual schools, for example, like those you just put on the Oculus and you're already at school. You know, like apa Ready Player One punya film tu kan, for example, like those
Virtual.
but we don't have to wait until everybody want to go for that courses. What we have to do is actually making ourselves adapted with the right skills that is needed. For example, satu kita sebut pasal skill active learning. How actually that you active in term of the learning, self-directed learning, for example. What is your ability to learn by yourself rather than everything semua kena spoon feed by the lecturer ataupun by the teachers. So are we improving on that? And then the one, for example, how in term of our adaptability, for example, if let's say things change, can we adapt to it? Can we change ourselves, go this way, go in term of the different direction, for example? So those are the things that we have to ask ourselves. Just to let you know lah, macam I mentioned earlier, my background is chemical engineering. Masa saya habis my PhD, when I completed my PhD, it's still in chemical engineering. But when I came back from my PhD, I was actually appointed as the director for Center for Teaching and Learning. And during that time, my knowledge, especially when usually those people who actually hold the position for this is somebody from Faculty of Education, kan? Who actually knows about assessment, who knows about pedagogy and all those kind of things. My knowledge during that time is zero. Tapi because I think it's the adaptability. How can you cope yourself to learn something new, okay, and grab it, and then because of the skills that you have got, for example, while doing your PhD, skill of making research, skill of extensive reading, skill of talking to, negotiating, communicating with others. So those are the things that build you up to get a new skills. And after that, after I hold my position as what do you call that, the director for Center for Teaching and Learning, I was also seconded as the CEO for Digital Perak Corporation Holding, one of the JLC in Perak. But I only hold it for 9 months lah. That's a different story. But if you have to know, that is actually becoming a CEO for an IT and telecommunication company. Okay, it's not related at all to chemical engineering. But I think I am be able to manage that somehow. Okay. Even right now, I learn a lot about business. You know, get involved in multi-level marketing. You know, so that I learn new skills along the way, and I do not find that all of these skills that I have learned in the past, tak ada satu pun yang tersisa, tak ada satu pun yang saya rasa benda yang merugikan that I about learning ni. So learning ni is a lifelong process. It's a lifelong process. And if let's say you really want to be somebody who are adaptable to whatever that is ever changing in the future, you need to become a self-directed learner. You need to become a lifelong learner, and you need to be able to become someone who be able to grasp the skill along the way and apply that particular skill. I think those are the very important thing for you to have lah. Okay, Amira?
All right. Thank you, Doctor. Okay, for the next question, from Kimberly Lim. From a business student background, what perks or benefits do you look for in a prospective company's culture? Why are these important to you? I think this question is for Dr. Sahil.
I'm reading the question
Uh,
from a business student background. What perks or benefit do you look for in a prospective company culture? Why are these important to you? From a business student background. From the business student background.
or is it because you are teaching about business?
Okay. Once you are business student background, normally there are two options for you. Whether you want to be a self-employed, you to be an entrepreneur, when you finish your study, or you want to have a job, you want to go for a job first. Okay, okay. Once if you want to be yourself, that means to be an entrepreneur, that's is a different thing. Okay, but if you want to go for a company, the company have a different culture. All company have a different culture. In the manufacturing sector, it's different. In the financial service sector, it's different. In the maybe the services like government GLC is different. You must understand that one first. Okay, for example, in the manufacturing, you work in factory. Okay, you work in factory. They are very strictly work on the uh, hourly basis. You have to work 8 hours per day. You have a lunch hour at 1 o'clock, 10 o'clock for coffee time or tea time 2 o'clock. This is a table, and your target is your product. Okay, if you the company target for this month, uh, how many units product to be produced? This is what you have to achieve. Okay, then you work hard on that. If you cannot uh, if the supervisor cannot meet the target at the end of the given time, he have to do overtime. That's why we can see people work in the factory. They do uh, overtime to get the target achieved. In the financial sector, we work uh, no hour because we have to work from morning to midnight. Okay, you must settle the work on that day. Okay, if you work in the frontliner, like services operation department, okay, involve cash, it must be balanced and keep in the vault by 5 o'clock. So you must balance before 5 o'clock, at least 4:30 or 4 o'clock. Okay, this is the culture in the bank. If you cannot get a balance, maybe you short, maybe 1 cent or 2 cent, you have to replace. If you short 1,000, you have to replace. This is your responsibility. This is the culture in the financial institution. But in the service sector, like maybe delivery or post office, TNB, it's different. How they work? They are attending the customer. Okay, attending the customer, frontliner. This is what students have to understand before they join a company. Don't work like a service company in the bank or in the factory. Don't work like that. Okay, if you like to work in the bank, okay, you would like to work in the bank, you must learn how the bank people work. You should know, because bank is running 24 hours, but you work, your time for work is actually 9 to 5, but you actually can go back at 11 o'clock. This is very common for me to go back at, you are the last man in the bank. Okay, you manage the bank, you are the last, like a captain of the cruise ship. If the ship sink, and then the captain must be the last person to leave the factory, the ship. Let the people safe. Okay, you die, never mind. Like, but the people safe. That's why if you see in the experience in Korea, the captain commit suicide because many people die. You remember that, the ferry. Okay, this is what I'm trying to say is, you must learn, you must study the culture of the uh, companies that you want to join. If you want to join a manufacturing sector, how they work, okay, how they work, you are ready for that. If you want to work in the service company, how they work, then you ready for that. You can be maybe not like, if you want to work in the bank, you must know how the bank work. You can see that maybe look glamour banker, but work like hell. Okay, okay, that's all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
Sahil, for the answer. Oh, that will be the last question. Uh, Thank you, Dr. Sahri and Dr. Tazli. In conclusion, to wrap this up, I will say that education is important for the preparation for life. Education itself is important to survive this life. Besides that, like Dr. Sari said in the beginning of our slot today, Prophet Muhammad SAW also said that learning about life is part of the activity that you can gain it over it. If you die while you are studying, you will go to heaven just because of it. Hence, in my opinion, if you have the opportunity to continue on your study on a subject, please take that opportunity. I am sure it will benefit you in the future. Take that risk and get out of your comfortable zone to be a successful person. I apologize for any shortcomings or flaws that occurred during this second slot. So I will be signing off now. My name is Amira Afifah Badrisha, and thank you so much Dr. Sari and Dr. Tazi
Yeah,
for
thank you, Amira.
giving the
Nice
talk
to
to
meet
us.
you.
Nice to meet you too,
All the
Doctor.
best to you.
Thank you,
Thank
Doctor
you.
Prop. Nice
Thank
to
you,
meet
Dr.
you,
Syarif.
Mm.
Prop. Yeah,
Nice to
yeah.
meet you,
See you
insyaAllah.
again.
See
See
you
you,
again
inshallah.
sometime.
Okay, assalamualaikum warahmatullah.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Thank you to both panelists for the informative discussion. I hope that everyone was able to gain and obtain new knowledge from our two sessions just now. So, our last session will begin again at 2:30 p.m., where we will be discussing a very interesting topic on gender equality. So, see you guys on the next session, and don't forget to scan the QR code displayed or click on the link in the description below for your e-certificate. You are only required to fill in the form once throughout the whole program. Thank you and see you guys later.